welcome to another episode of the Tim Boxeo Show. This is your weekly disclaimer. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, I want to let you know right now that this is not your average boxing podcast. If you are looking for a discussion on Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley, well, this week you're in the right spot, but usually you wouldn't be in the right spot. But we are going to take you on a trip around the world of boxing. We will be looking into the cracks and the crevices and everything that's falling through that isn't being talked about. And that is all things club boxing. So if you want to hear about fights where things are on fire or whatever the case may be in terms of wild stuff that goes viral, you're in the right spot. If that's not what you're here for, no worries. There are plenty of other boxing podcasts out there. You should ask Tim, what should I listen to? What do you listen to? And he'll tell you. But if you're up for the wild and unpredictable world of Tim Boxeo and all that is club boxing, get ready. We have a great show for you here today. So let me introduce you to the man of the hour, the one who will be doing most of the talking today. That is the TC Boxing Hall of Famer. He has more uploads on his resume than anybody I know. Tim, how's it going?
It's going great, Angelo. I've been buried here in the bunker the last 4 hours, just kind of breaking down when Oscar Valdez's B sample is going to be tested, when, what this means for Robson Conceição and what type of diuretic was used. And
it wasn't a diuretic.
Oh, yeah, I'm just kidding. I wasn't.
Some
I wasn't
new
doing
info's
any.
come out since then.
I wasn't doing any of that, so I'm doing good.
You weren't doing any diuretics?
No, I don't need diuretics, and I don't care about Valdez versus Robson Conceição.
Well, first of all, it's Conceição.
I do on fight.
The other thing is that Conceição, Olympic gold medalist. I think we ought to give him his credit, but also Oscar Valdez, tremendous talent. But anyway, that's not what we're here for today. We have to talk about what our story of the week is. So in the world of Tim Boxeo, I think you had even said last week that the weekend was so packed that it was almost overwhelming how much stuff there was to watch. So with all that went on, what is your story of the week?
Yeah, there was so much stuff on, especially Saturday into Saturday night. But what we're going to talk about for the story of the week this week is looking through the lens of club boxing at the event Sunday night, Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. So this will be fun.
Maybe that'll throw some of you guys a little curveball there.
I was going to say, this is some crossover between my podcast and your podcast.
Yeah, well, I mean, we are officially a boxing podcast now.
Yeah, we've made it. You even had, I mean, this was such a big deal in your world of professional boxing that you did an immediate broadcast after the fight, right? On fight night.
Yeah, we did. And our boy Boxrec Gray joined us.
Yeah, friend of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Always a good listen. Yeah, so I did. I watched that Sunday night. So here was my setup. I had to stay true to myself. I did have a pay-per-view from Atlanta on my computer, and unfortunately that was $25. But the main event was Sixto Suazo versus Larry Smith. Sixto Suazo is pretty interesting prospect. Middleweight, moves to 9-1-1. He got the win, TKO 3 in the main event. I guess prospect, he's kind of on the older side, 32 years old, but
typically that's a little bit past the prospect expiration date, but I'll let you define that.
Yeah. In the club world, it's all over the place, right? So anyway, and then the main TV, I had the pay-per-view of Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley, and I was really, really looking forward to it. So I just look forward to having a discussion with you about it, more than just a story being told on my part. I do have a few things I definitely want to delve into, though.
All right, Tim's about to get on his soapbox.
No, I'm not going to get in a soapbox. I'm just interested, as much as asking you some questions and clarification as back the other way as well. So I guess first and foremost, I just state my opinion overall on the event. I mean, I thought the pay-per-view itself was really, really entertaining. I think, right from the first fight all the way through the main event, it was, kind of an expensive show, but I felt like I definitely got my money's worth. I think it was overall a really exciting night of fights. And I even enjoyed the main event. I mean, it seems like maybe it under-delivered a little bit, but I did. I mean, I enjoyed it. I think it was enough tension in the main event to keep everybody engaged. And so, yeah, that was my take overall. What was your overall take on how the event was?
I really enjoyed it. I feel like it's really important to have some occasional events like this in boxing where we can bring more eyeballs into the sport that aren't already here. Like, I understand Canelo's a big star, and rightfully so, he's a big star. But you have to consider that of the total people who watch boxing or have an interest in, there's like a complete overlap with somebody who's going to tune in to watch Terrence Crawford with somebody who's going to tune in to watch Canelo. Like, pretty much anybody who watches Crawford is going to be watching Canelo in terms of any significant type of number. I mean, there may be some people that watch Crawford that aren't interested in Canelo. That number is really small. And there are only a few fighters in boxing where they bring in, like, their little piece of the pie is sizable, like a Canelo or a Gervonta Davis. And so these events where we can bring attention into boxing on a grand scale where we have a lot of people, I think that's really important. And so I don't think that this event created a million new boxing fans. I really don't. But I think the seeds were planted for an incremental growth on the whole in the sport. So in terms of that, for how I felt about this event health-wise, I think it's very good for the sport of boxing. And then just for my own personal enjoyment, I really liked it. I thought of myself as like a person who didn't really care for Jake Paul at the beginning. And as I've learned about him and just kind of watched the artistry behind what he does, I gotta, at a minimum, respect what he does. So I really enjoyed it. I thought the undercard was really fine. The Montana Love and Ivan Baranchyk fight, I mean, Jesus, I'm going to pour some out for Baranchyk because that's quite a fall from wherever he was. But it was just very sad at the end. But what a fight. He gave it everything he had. Nice to see Amanda Serrano in that position. So I had no real qualms about the event. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was money well spent. Also, I want to point out that you, as somebody who you literally just said, you ordered a club boxing pay-per-view for $25 in April or in Atlanta, and then you had the audacity to call this pay-per-view on Showtime, which had 5 fights, including big mainstream stars. I just feel like you can't call it expensive.
Well, that's good. That's a point well taken. Yeah, that's fair. I don't even have anything witty to say back to that. I'll just swallow that one and we'll move on. I mean, it's a good point. Right off the jump, like what I noticed, and I think I messaged on your Discord, the overall environment of the event right when it turned on at 8 Eastern or whatever time it was really something unlike you typically see in boxing. And it pointed out to me that, and I know you made the point that you don't think there'll be a lot of new fans brought into the sport because of this night. And, I don't feel real dogmatic about that one way or the other, but what I did recognize right when my TV turned on was that this was not a boxing crowd per se.
No.
And I knew that because when the show started at 8, the place was full.
Right.
And that is not a boxing crowd. Boxing people don't do that, right? Maybe they fill up a little bit in the upper bowl and, you see some scattering in the lower bowl. But that place was packed. The crowd noise and just interaction from the fans all through the night. It just goes to show, and I've seen people put up opinions during the pandemic that, boxing is a sport that you can package and put on television. I mean, I think Eddie Hearn even said this multiple times without a crowd. But it just goes to show that when you have a fired up crowd that's really interacting with the fights, it can make a fight that maybe isn't a top level fight feel like it's a top level fight just because of the enthusiasm. And,
can I get some clarification here? I just want to confirm I heard you correctly. So Eddie, amongst others, said that boxing is a sport that could translate to the empty arena sort of environment.
Yeah, pre-pandemic, that was the thought process.
That is completely wrong, but
I mean not pre-pandemic. As they're getting ready to get started, you know what I mean, after the pandemic.
I mean,
was upon us.
Wishful thinking, like you think it could. I understand why you would make that statement, and like, I think in some cases you can, but like on this level, I mean, just think about the Jermell Charlo, the Charlo doubleheader pay-per-view where Jermell Charlo scores one of the most bizarre knockouts we've ever seen, with that body shot jab that stopped Jason Rosario. Imagine what that would have been like with the crowd. Imagine the Charlo, the Jermell Charlo and then Derevianchenko fight, which was really entertaining. But in front of the empty crowd, that fight, I think, went from being a possible fight of the year contender to just being like an entertaining enough fight because of the empty arena. So I don't know that I agree with that.
No, I definitely don't agree with that either. I was actually trying to refute that point.
Oh, okay. Just make it. Oh, well, yeah, that is part of your point. Yeah. I needed the clarification for myself because my brain told me maybe you said the reverse, or well, not that you were saying the reverse, but what they said was reverse. And then, I mean, in terms of the crowd, like everyone was in their seats before. Like, what the heck was that?
I know. I mean, I was trying to understand that myself. I don't know. I mean, I don't watch any MMA. You probably watch enough to know. I mean, do MMA fans fill in the crowd early like that?
If I watch MMA, and if for anybody who's a fan of MMA here, we definitely apologize for our ignorance on the sport, but I've never watched an undercard fight in MMA, so I legitimately don't know.
All right. Yeah, I don't either. You said one thing to start, not to completely change directions, but I'm interested to learn more about this. So one of the things that I can't understand in general is why people dislike Jake Paul so much, number one. And then what seems to flow from that naturally is some sort of protection of boxing from Jake Paul, if that's the right way to say it. Like those two things almost go hand in hand, that I don't like Jake Paul, and then the next comment or a part of the dialogue is, he doesn't belong on the top of a pay-per-view representing the sport of boxing. And I just don't understand the thought process. I just can't get my head around it, to the point where I truly don't understand what makes people so upset. I don't get it at all.
So I must be like the whisperer for people that are hated. I guess it's all speculation because I don't think either of us has an answer. But in terms of like the standoffish sort of feeling that boxing fans have about Jake Paul, I mean, that's really interesting. I think part of it has to do with kind of like a didn't pay his dues sort of thing. I think boxing fans are also like, for whatever reason, really skeptical of guys who are praised and don't necessarily have the skill or the talent that they expect them to have. Like, everyone's scared of getting burned by a prospect who doesn't turn out to be any good. And I think for the most part, boxing people think that this is somehow a poor reflection on the sport of boxing. But at the end of the day, it's not. Do you think that all of UFC has been discounted, and MMA, I guess we should say, but all of MMA was discounted based off of the performance that we've seen from Tyron Woodley and Conor McGregor, who both lost in boxing matches? The answer is no. I think all boxing fans and UFC MMA fans are all smart enough, and we should definitely give them the credit too. Everyone is smart enough to know that these fights are not representative of anything, and not even boxing, because are we really saying that Jake Paul is what we got to offer in boxing? Come on now. Jake Paul, I might take Canelo blindfolded against Jake Paul.
Right.
So,
yeah. No, I get the point about not paying your dues. I guess my response to that would be and I think that's a natural feeling. And I think that's where it comes from, because there's a lot of boxer hate towards Jake Paul too. I mean, you see it on social media relatively frequently, and I understand it. I do. Again, if we look at it through the club boxing lens, though, because this is something that gets lost a lot of times when you get up to the higher platforms, is, well, this is going to sound funny that I say it this way because it kind of conflicts with what I just said, but the money drives everything at the club level, right? And specifically the ticket sales. Mm-hmm. So if at the club level you have a guy that puts, or a gal that puts, 500 sells 500 to 1,000 tickets on a really small show, 2,000 tickets, whatever. That person, if they're not already headlining an event, are going to be headlining an event very, very quickly. I mean, within maybe a couple of club shows, that promoter is going to have that person headlining the show, mm-hmm. because they're driving the revenue that makes the most sense at the club level. And I just look at that the exact same way with Jake Paul. The guy's bringing the money in for the event. I don't mm-hmm. care if he's below, if he belongs at Big Punch. He deserves the spot at the top of the event. He's and what flows down from that is, it was documented, if I'm not mistaken, that he's allowing these other fighters to fight on his show, and in most of the cases giving them more money than they would have gotten. So, I fail to see how that's a bad thing for boxing. And I guess my last point I would make is, first of all, boxing's tent is pretty freaking small, right? So anyone that just wants to keep that tent small, I think is kind of misaligned. And then the other thing is, we all look, then this is a human nature in life in general, right? We all look back at our memories and experiences and only remember the best of it, right? And you look back to however far back your boxing memory goes, and you only look at the best of it. But the reality is, boxing has a horrible history, checkered past. And to say that we're somehow protecting the sanctity of boxing, my God, let's be real, man. Boxing's a heaping pile of shit. And we're all part of it. We love it for that. But don't try to polish up the turd and say that, oh, Jake Paul's ruining something here. My Lord, it's,
No, I definitely agree with that. We've seen this example before, but, sometimes maybe you need to zoom out and see it from another perspective and another field to kind of grasp the futility here. But, if you go all the way back to, I think it might have been the 60s, when Elvis went to go do movies and he left music behind. And obviously Elvis was the biggest star in music. Somebody who's older than me, maybe listening, might check me here, but if you're not, oh well, I got it wrong. But he was the biggest star in music, goes to do movies, and immediately is an A-lister. Never took one class at the Lee Strasberg Institute or anything like that. He didn't know nothing about the method, but right. He was headlining these movies, getting paid more than I can't recall any 60s actor, Steve McQueen. But that's just what comes along with when you're going to guarantee money and success, because at the end of the day, it's all about money. You know, the event's not possible if that money's not coming in.
Yeah, and it's all about entertainment. I mean, we talked about that around when we had Chris Lovejoy on a number of episodes ago, and you know, it's somewhat of a parallel discussion in that, you know, the guy just brings entertainment and was able to position himself into a way where he could earn money. I mean, boxing's an entertainment business, so we know that. I mean, I think the other thing that wasn't so much of a hot take, I mean, I've heard this. I heard this spoke a lot on social media, is that overall the event itself was received really positively by boxing fans on social media, and I think that's probably true, but I don't really find that much of a hot take, because it was just a straight and through boxing card, right? I mean, the undercard itself was pretty strong for most pay-per-view boxing events, and it was just a little bit of an odd main event if you're a hardcore boxing fan. And I just think that, you know, this was one of those weird cases where people looked at Drop of Money and were like, you know what, the undercard did drive some of the purchase, because it was pretty strong. So you had the intrigue of Jake Paul, and then you had some good solid boxing underneath. So it's probably not that surprising that boxing fans in general across social media were pretty positive about the event.
I think just on the whole, I really enjoyed it. Like, and I did not expect myself to enjoy it. You know, I'd never seen Montana Love fight before, so I was like, oh boy. I mean, I have this saying that I stole from an ESPN analyst who covers basketball, but he always says, if you're on the court, you're standing out there waiting for the pass, you're open for a reason. And guys who aren't usually like signed with the big names probably open for a reason. And there are guys for sure who slip through the cracks, or for sure who have made massive strides, or just somebody who was overlooked. And Montana Love definitely seems like that guy. Like, I don't know where he came from. That's a good question to ask you, actually. Did you ever see him fight? Do you know who this guy is?
I mean, I definitely heard his name, but it wasn't someone that stuck out to me as remembering, you know, anything that he had done spectacularly. And that was another thing I wanted to mention too, right? It was, I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit on Montana Love. Like, he looked really good, but we talked about this last week. I mean, it was one fight. Like you said, Baranchik was a shell of himself. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the uppercut that knocked Baranchik down, I think Mercado in the female fight took harder shots than put Baranchik down. I mean, let's be real. I mean, Baranchik, I think we both agree, needs to, you know, put the gloves away. I mean, God bless the guy. He's a warrior, but his punch resistance is completely gone. So,
and he didn't have much to start with, too. Just want to throw that out there.
Well, that's a good point too. He's known for always being on the canvas, but yeah, I mean, I think Montana Love looked really good, but it was just one fight. Hey, can we finally put to bed this thing about a best MMA striker could beat a boxer, you know, in a match? Because, I mean. So I was my son was watching the fight with me, and he was like, "Is this guy any good that Jake's fighting?" My son's 15, and I said, "You know, I don't have any idea. I've never watched a minute of MMA, but I watched him just hitting the pads for like 30 seconds, and I was like, this guy doesn't have any idea how to fight, right? He does, and you saw it so many times during the fight. He had absolutely no idea how to get inside on Jake Paul. And Jake Paul is so inexperienced that halfway through the fight, it didn't really matter anymore, because I think between Jake Paul's inexperience and Jake Paul's exhaustion, Woodley just basically had to just walk forward to get inside. But when you saw the first 4 rounds, he just could not get inside. He had no idea how to do it and was so squared up. And maybe it was you. We might have traded comments one time or another too. At one point in the first or second round, it almost looked like his muscle memory. I thought we were going to see a takedown. Like his muscle memory was so weird that, well, consistent with his background, consistent with what a high level UFC fighter he was, but in a boxing ring, it just looked really weird. I thought he was going to take Jake down, but it's just two different sports. I mean, I think we could put that argument to finally.
Like, I mean, it's not an indictment on either of the sports. I just think that the muscle memory is exactly the right way to put it. Like, Woodley, where he would go on like an instinctual level was just not really going to work in boxing. And so we had these moments where there were even moments where he hit Jake, but like the shots that he got him with didn't have a ton of leverage on them. They were quick little sort of slapping type of punches. And that's because this dude is used to worrying about getting kicked in the face.
Yeah. Yeah. The caveat to my point about him hitting the pads and, I mean, I don't mean to sound like he's a piece of trash or anything. I mean, just not striking the pads the way a boxer does. And my caveat to that to my son was, Jake doesn't really know how to punch either. So maybe we're going to see a really good fight here. I don't have any idea. But, hey, before we wrap this up, I do have a question for you. I did listen to your post-fight podcast, after this fight that you guys did, like you said, with BoxRec Ray. You made a comment real quick, and everybody passed by it, that you would never order a pay-per-view from Fight on a fight like this, and no one said anything. So I want to know why you said that.
I always, as much as possible, I am like, I go to the source. I'm not trying to buy from third-party outlets. I am going to the source. If it's a Showtime pay-per-view, like it was on Saturday, I'm going to order from Showtime. That's just kind of like the way I am, I guess. I don't feel comfortable going through a third party. I need it as raw as possible. That's why.
Okay.
And if I have to, I'll order through Fight. I mean, I ordered the Clarissa Shields pay-per-view on Fight.
No, sure. But in this case, because you could order from Showtime, you went. So I would probably normally agree with that, except of what happened to me in Mayweather on the last Mayweather fight. Plus, what just continues to happen to me every single weekend where I pay for something and it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Like, I know when I pay for something through Fight, it's going to work. So, or if it doesn't, it's super easy to get my money back. And I don't have to wait a month to get my money back. So,
well, I just say, well, if you're ordering through Fight, that's because only 12 people are streaming it. No, but the Showtime one did work really well this time. None of the issues that we had last time. Last time was an absolute disaster.
So Logan Paul broke BoxRec this time, but not the Showtime app.
Showtime was ready. They called it Viacom, and they were like, "Yo, we need some more servers. What can you do for us?" And they said,
"All right, good.
Yeah, we can do that." No, BoxRec was definitely down. BoxRec, Gray told me that Jake Paul, the traffic was insane on BoxRec. And my question was, why were people looking up Jake Paul's BoxRec? Wouldn't you look him up on YouTube or Twitter or something? Why were you going to his BoxRec? Yeah. What were you really going to find there?
Yeah, that is kind of weird. It doesn't really that doesn't connect for me, but maybe it was. I don't know. All right, man. Well, anyway, that's the story of the week. I feel like I've got 10 other points I wanted to talk about, but we could be here all night.
You should have came on our podcast. You could got them all out. We get into the weeds on this stuff, but you have to talk to us now about what else happened this weekend in the world of club boxing. We had a show in Austria. There was our boy Kevin in action.
I wanted to do it a little differently this week. Normally, I kind of break down an exciting fight and just mention some others. Instead, I just wanted to mention some others and mention some others more than just a handful. And the reason is kind of like what I said on last week's podcast is this really was a weekend of quantity over quality, but we did have probably half dozen super cool, super good. I'm sounding real educated. Super cool events happen that I wanted to tell you about. The first one, and we're going to play the hits here for a second, as you would say, Angelo, is we got an update from Saul Farah. after it's not a fight, but I wanted to give an update from El Gran Campeon. And he made a long post on his Facebook page in case you missed it. If you're listening and haven't had a chance to hear this, it's some pretty good stuff. So just give me like 2 minutes and let me recap this for you. So as we all know, Saturday, August 21st, in the city of Pando, Bolivia, Saul Farah got his revenge with a TKO 12 victory over Pedro Tabarez, who just 2 months prior to the day literally stomped on Saul's head in Pando and was disqualified in the 6th round. So Saul took to Facebook to put this post, and then I think I had mentioned last week or the week prior that there were at least 6 to a dozen, if you include restreaming sites across Bolivia that broadcast that fight. And Saul took this announcement and posted it on all of those sites. So he was out spreading the word. And let me do my best to recap this. What's interesting about Spanish in Bolivia, it doesn't translate quite as cleanly as it does with maybe Mexican Spanish or Spanish from Spain. It's just not the same. But here we go. So Saul gives a little bit of a recap in the beginning of his statement, and the fact that they fought a revenge fight on August 21st. And he said, I was knocked down cleanly in the first fight in round 6, but I was standing and I wasn't hurt. And the very cowardly Tabarez hit me with illegal blows, cowardly while I was on the floor, kicked me while I was on the floor. If he had succeeded, he would have left me in a wheelchair or taken my life and left me in a vegetative state. His action, Angela, I can hear you laughing.
I know, but I can't help it.
Okay, all right.
I'll tell you why after. Okay.
Left me in a vegetative state. His action was repudiated worldwide, which is probably a pretty true statement, hopefully. His attitude deserves jail and a lifetime suspension from active professional boxing. All right, insert Tim's commentary here, which is interesting because, as I mentioned on last week's show, really the only reason why Tabarez was allowed to fight the rematch is because basically Farah granted that to him. So that's an interesting little, but that never stops a fighter or a promoter or anyone from, just leaving that part out. Okay, so I'm continue. Now, sorry, like I said, the translation's a little choppy, so I'm doing my best here. So denouncing his actions to the Professional Boxing Commission or the Bolivian Justice, that Saul saying he did not do those things. He won by disqualification. The first fight at home in the courageous department city of Pando. And I didn't feel like my pride left, he says. Tabarez himself entered Farah's radar, and Farah fought him again, went again to Tabarez's hometown and knocked him out in his home, hit him with a massive knockout. The word didn't translate real well that he used in Spanish. Left him cut, knocked out, and humiliated in his hometown. I taught him what an athlete is like, Farah said. I taught him what it is to win. I returned him to his reality and taught him to be a man. I taught him that one should be humble, which is great. I mean, it's so good. I taught him as a visitor in his own house. And he goes around now, Tabarez, complaining about the beating I gave him. You have to know how to win, and you have to know how to lose. You have to have honor, and he is a cowardly person. Now, Farah says, I didn't hit him illegally. I didn't hit him low. and the word actually translates to testicles. So he must have said I didn't hit him in the balls. And I didn't walk around crying or complaining about what he did to me in our first fight. So justice was going to be had in his house. I knocked him out well, and I knocked him out as a visitor in his house, and that's it. I'm not interested in the slightest about a trilogy with how much I am superior to him. If we had fought a third fight, if we do fight a third fight, it would be a massacre, and it's not worth it. He is not a rival for me. Boxer Pedro Tavares is no longer on my radar. It's a closed case. I knocked him out, and that's it. And that's pretty much where the story ends.
Okay.
Just a fantastic summary by El Gran Campeon.
The reason why I'm laughing is that this sounds exactly like a heel wrestling promo where they try to be a babyface and just at the end of it just absolutely just bury their opponent. It sounds like Bret Hart in the late 90s. It's just, if he ends it with like, and that's why I am the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. If he would have thrown in, Pedro found out that I am the excellence of execution, like everyone, or did I say the excellence of execution? Everyone would just be a Bret Hart promo.
Oh, it's so great. It's exactly what I thought of too. It was perfect. And my favorite part was I taught him how to be a man. I taught him how to win. And then, I taught him how to be humble. It's just, it's so good. So anyway, that's going to be it. We won't see a trilogy fight from Farah and Tavares. So I wanted to give everyone that update. Might have fit in a different part of our show, but I wanted to pass that along to you. Okay. So let me get back on track here. We had, and I previewed this last week, a really nice performance by 19-year-old Jalen Skywalker, who moves to 9-0-1 with 8 knockouts. He had a knockdown in the second, knockdown in the third, actually lost a point in the third for hitting in the back of the head, and took a TKO victory in their 4-round bout over a really tough Mexican named Soto Molinero. Falls to 12-7-2. It was a featherweight bout at Big Punch. And Walker, I think, for a 19-year-old, is really polished at this point. I mean, the Mexican he fought was so dirty, and the fight was so physical. It was to the point where Walker was completely frustrated, but maintained his composure. I mean, you could tell after the fight that he was frustrated, but for a 19-year-old, just did a really good job of maintaining his composure. I think for his age and experience level, and even including the fight that he fought this past April on the Ring City show in New York, a really polished fighter. I've liked what I've seen from him so far. And I think, win, lose, or draw, he drew that fight in New York. Maybe he gets a loss here, as he continues to progress. I just don't see – I see him as a fighter that potentially has world title written on him, like a legitimate future world champion. Even if he's match tough and takes a loss along the way, I think he's going to power through that. I like what I see from this kid, and I enjoyed watching this fight. So that was a fun one to see. You mentioned this one, a favorite of the fans of Sunday Puncher Boxing, of course, as well as the Tim Boxeo Show. We had 19-year-old welterweight Kevin David Hernandez improved to 6-0-1 with 6 knockouts. A TKO 3 victory over Cipriano Garcia falls to 11-17, and Kevin claims the Tamaulipas welterweight title in Matamoros, Mexico. And Hernandez, he of the amazing flow of well beyond what you would call hockey hair or similar, well beyond, all the way down like to his belt line. He got his opponent trapped in the corner and really unloaded with the left with some big overhands and got a TKO stoppage. And I don't know what type of future Kevin has. He is extremely raw, but he's fun to watch, and he's got a great head of hair. So we'll keep rooting for him. So, moving on. This is a fighter that I did a standalone interview with, and it was a decorated U.S. amateur. Brooklyn's Harley Medeiros made his pro debut. He was originally scheduled to fight on that Triller Fight Club card about a month ago. That was on a Tuesday night. And the headliner's escaping me at the moment. It was a heavyweight headline fight.
Michael Hunter and Mike White Delight.
Michael Hunter.
Wilson.
There it is. There
yeah.
Wilson.
I was wondering why this guy's name was familiar. I was like, Harley Medeiros. I don't know where I know this guy from.
Yeah, Brooklyn fighter. He's got a really pretty decorated amateur career. He was on that show, and then the week of the fight, his fight got scrapped for undisclosed reasons, really. Didn't really say. He has, in the amateurs, a couple of fights with Keyshawn Davis that were really, really close. And when I asked Medeiros about it on my interview with him, you could hear in his voice some angst about how those fights on the amateur level went down. But just to give you a flavor of what type of prospect we're talking about here, this kid is really good. And he lives and trains in Brooklyn, trained by Yoel Judah. And he, after that fight in New York City was scrapped, I'm guessing he jumped on this card at Kentucky on Saturday just to, get his pro debut under his belt, because he knocked this kid down 3 times and got a TKO on someone named Ray Locker, who falls to 1-5. So Harley Medeiros, I think that kid's got a bright future. Be fun to watch. 21 years old, I believe. Also had a Bare Knuckle Boxing Association event Friday night. It was Friday. No, maybe it was Saturday. And I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our man in the main event, someone named Darren Hendry. This was streamed on the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship app, even though it was a Bare Knuckle Boxing Association event. And our man Darren Hendry, for winning the main event and doing so with an ankle bracelet on. That was a first for me. But I think I saw Patrick Connor from the Twitter world mention that Darren almost caught another charge, because I think when he got his guy knocked down, he almost jumped on him and, followed through with that aggression before the fight was stopped. So shout out to Darren Hendry for not only making it to the main event, considering his ankle bracelet, but then winning it. So.
Well, yeah, it probably had to not be out of state or out of the county.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was definitely a first. That tweet went kind of viral. So that's it for the fights of the week.
Any how should we say, nefarious things, maybe some not so shining moments that put boxing in the best light?
Yeah, 2 funny ones. Well, one funny and one not so funny. The funny one was back to Kevin's card in Matamoros, Mexico, right across the border from the South Point in Texas, down by South Powder Island. And Angel, you'll know the 39-year-old heavyweight Eric Little Drummer Boy Molina actually improved to 28-7, and he got a victory over 44-year-old heavyweight Alejandro De La Torre, who falls to 2-11. But the real point of this was, there's a clip on my Twitter that's in the show notes where De La Torre basically in the second round bum rushes Molina, and almost it looks like a American football tackles him the 2 go right through the ropes to fall on ringside tables. What's also kind of funny about the clip is there's a couple of people that these 2 heavyweights fall on, and between the 2, they've got to weigh close to 600 pounds. And there's at least 1 or 2 people that don't even move as these 2 guys come falling onto their laps. So shout out to those two men because they were paying attention, and I guess they thought the tables they were sitting at were pretty sturdy, but they had no intent of getting out of the way. But that clip went pretty much all over the internet. It's not every day you see two heavyweights totaling about 600 pounds literally flying through the ropes. So.
Wait, did they fly through the ropes or did the ring break? Because
the ring broke, but it broke in the way that, you'd break some paper mache. I mean,
right.
That ring wasn't constructed very well.
That was that was not a very sturdy ring. Although, granted, 600 pounds of man was leaning on it. But I do want to say something about this. You said that Eric Molina improved to 28-7. I take issue with your use of the word improve there because I don't think he actually improved anything in fighting this fight. It was not pretty.
Oh, man. He said in his social media afterward, this happened, but on to the next. So I guess he's, he fights on. I'm not sure why, but he does. A long fall from Deontay Wilder and some of the others he's been in the ring with. But
Anthony Joshua. Yeah, Eric Molina's had some moments, but dang, we are far from that.
We are. The other sad point, and this is, I suppose I could include this in almost every show we do, but I forgot to add it the last couple of shows. 2 streams that I dropped money down didn't happen. And one was I purchased directly, I suppose, from Mike Marshall on a website called Millions, where he was the heavyweight main event in New Hampshire. And the show, it just never went live. I paid $6 for it, and nothing happened. It just never broadcast. And Millions was great. I got my $6 back pretty quick. But the person that's supposed to hold the camera to record Mike Marshall, why not go to social media and say, hey, sorry, we were having a problem and we'll make sure everybody gets their money back or something. No, of course, it's just typical club boxing world. It's just crickets, and nobody knows what's going on. And then later that night, I tune into a Christy Martin Promotions pay-per-view on something called the BPE Network, which is an app that you have to download from the App Store. Live commentary provided by The Boxing Voice?
It's not duh. It's The Boxing Voice.
Okay, The Boxing Voice.
It's only one duh in boxing, and that is a streaming service, not a podcast.
Okay, got it.
Although those guys are big enough, they may eventually have their own little streaming service, but you guys can consult me for that, and we can set that up at a future date.
Exactly. The stream was...
Me and Mike Marshall.
You and Mike, right? Yeah, exactly. The stream was just unwatchable, buffering every 5 to 10 seconds. It's a $20 event, and for 3.5 hours, it just buffered and watched 10 seconds of boxing and buffered. And, this kind of thing just happens all the time on club boxing. And so I don't even know what to say anymore. You'd think I'd have given up at this point, but I power through it, I guess.
So you just sit there watching. It's almost like when you had the illegal cable box in the 90s and you switched it to channel 3 from moved it from channel 3 to channel 2, and you were able to get little clips, little snippets of...
Geez, Angelo, I don't have any idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, because you probably were able to just, you controlled it. I'm younger than you.
Oh man.
I did not set the parental control. You did.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah, that's what it felt like. Anyway. We'll keep it positive. Off we go.
You don't want to reminisce on the good old days? All right. Graduation time. Who was in action this week that you are maybe starting to feel is ready to progress past club level?
So this is a really good one. I always, on the big punch shows, they're typically not listed on BoxRec. So I always check out the weigh-ins and try to see if I recognize people that are fighting. And I did that for this show, and I didn't recognize anyone. And then I've got a contact down in Tijuana who participates with one of the, well, doesn't participate, I guess, works side by side with one of the promoters. And I messaged him and asked him if he could send me a bout sheet, and he did. And I was almost shocked to see a 17-year-old super bantamweight from California, Ashton H2O Silv, who has fought exclusively in Baja California between Rosarito and Tijuana. And he improved to 5-0 with 5 knockouts by scoring a really pretty devastating first-round knockout that should have gotten a lot more heat across my social media, but it just didn't for whatever reason. And Silva's, he's got over 100 amateur bouts, was a 10-time national champion, like I said, 17 years old. Kid's got a really good head on his shoulders. He turned pro when he was 16 down in Rosarito, like I said. So BoxRec will probably soon have him at 4-0 with 4 knockouts, but he's 5-0. And he turned pro August 29th of 2020. I was the only one covering him for that pro debut. I'd done some research on the card, like I just mentioned I did for this one, and heard he was on it. So after some digging, found out that he had a pretty stellar amateur career. And he was supposed to make his U.S. debut as a 17-year-old in Texas on this recent PBC show, the undercard of Charlo Castano in San Antonio not too long ago. But days before the fight, announced he was off the card and really only shared on his Instagram that he was frustrated that boxing politics got them off the show, and really never talked about it beyond that. So I'm not really sure what that's all about. But if you follow him on his Instagram, on his social media, your kid's always in the gym. He trains out of Jackrabbit Boxing in Long Beach and is the CEO of his own promotional company that bears his nickname, H2O Boxing. And there's a handful of other Jackrabbit kids that he has signed underneath that banner. And they've thrown some of their own shows in Rosarito and Tijuana, where they've done co-promotions down there here in the last 18 months. And so that's been fun to watch. His team mentioned on an interview here just beginning of the year, they wanted to move him as fast as possible and only with fighters that had winning records. And he's done that pretty much down in Tijuana. He has not fought, a bunch of 1-21 fighters and, fighters that we've documented in this show. He has been in the ring with grown men. I mean, he's had a couple of guys with, 500 records or, 6-4, stuff like that. But 30-year-olds, grown man strength. And as a 16-year-old, I've just been extremely impressed with this kid. He's very calm in the ring, understands his space and distance really, really well. Very much of a pro style. Not a lot of wasted movement. He's not circling around the ring and, with that amateur style that you see some of the young kids. He's got real good power, fast hands. And I just think, well, it's obvious, right? I mean, he's going to be on a PBC show. He's going to be on a DAZN, ESPN show on an undercard here really, really soon. Probably, before the end of the year. Wouldn't even shock me. So, yeah, we'll definitely one to keep an eye on. If you're not familiar, I've got all 5 of his fights in the show notes from my Twitter that were down in Mexico. Not the full fights, but the clips of the stoppages and stuff, and then a link to his Instagram. He's one to watch. Really fun looking young fighter.
Yeah, I think that there might be a future there with him, but it's still so early. I really want to see him get out of the big punch and get on to, around the world. That doesn't necessarily mean leaving the club level. I don't know yet, but I think it'd be nice to see him get experience other places and see some different styles. All right, Tim, enough of the past. What do we have to look forward to this coming week?
So we definitely have a handful of things to look forward to, Angelo, and we're recording on Tuesday. I said this last week too, but we're recording on Tuesday at 10:30 Eastern time in the U.S. right now. So I got to get to bed pretty soon because we got a big fight tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, in Japan. Kazuto Ioka, 26-2, faces Mexico's Francisco Rodriguez, 34-4-1. 12 rounds for Ioka's WBO World Super Flyweight title. It'll be live on TBS in Japan, as well as ESPN Knockout in Latin America, which is, I like to refer to as the king of boxing across the world. They pick up some of the best fights anywhere in the world. It's kind of like what maybe UK fans thought Box Nation was going to be before it just completely fell off the map.
Box Nation had a good run. Do not disrespect Box Nation. It just fell off very quickly and very hard.
Oh, and it still exists. I don't even know what they're broadcasting anymore. They never pick up anything.
Oh, my God. We have to have a conversation on BoxRec, or not BoxRec. We can talk about that, too. But Box Nation at some point on a future episode.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, it's weird now. I mean, it's been 2 years since they've made any sort of dent in the boxing business. Anyway, so this will be a great fight tomorrow morning. I can't wait. And the time isn't really awful. The main event for Ioka and Rodriguez is the undercard's really, really thin. The main event is going to go at 8 a.m. Eastern time. So mainstream boxing writers, there's no reason you can't be up for that, for crying out loud.
I live in L.A. I'm not watching that live, at least.
Yeah, well, that's different. 5 a.m., but come on, Angelo, 5 a.m.
I can't do that.
Doable. It's doable. You're a young guy. Come on. Extra pot of coffee. Do you drink coffee?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Set. Done.
But, like, right. You know, I stay up late.
It goes with the young part, too. Well, younger than me, anyway. Yeah. I'm about to turn into a pumpkin here very shortly within the next 30 minutes. All right, so that should be a good fight.
It should be a great fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think the styles are going to be great for each other. I just don't think Rodriguez is on Ioka's level.
All right.
I think that's what it's going to boil down to.
Can I hijack this?
Going to stop him. Yeah, go ahead.
I have always loved both of these fighters. Kazuto Ioka, when I started to get into being a hardcore fan, because I was always a general fan of boxing, but I started to get hardcore with boxing. Kazuto Ioka was one of the first guys that, like, little hipster me was like, I like that guy. Yeah. And so he was probably like 8-0 maybe at the time, maybe even sooner. And then, loved his fight with Yagashi. I think he also had a really good one with Igarashi. I hope I'm saying these names right. And then he just kind of petered out and sort of was like just kind of ho-hum, like, okay, like, you got a WBA title, but come on, like, everybody has WBA titles. And then Francisco Rodriguez Jr. I've always felt bad for, because the dude was like a nice little prospect, and then at 19 years old fought Roman Gonzalez and just got destroyed. And I just always felt bad, but he climbed back, had a fantastic fight with Katsunori Takayama, which I think won Fight of the Year on like a bunch of awards the year that they did fight. But then kind of like wasn't able to make weight, had to relinquish the titles, floundered for a bit. He's finally found himself back at the top. I guess we could say back at the top. He's challenging at least. And is this fight like several years too late? Maybe. But so what? I love to see guys I like fight each other.
Yeah, the matchup is fantastic. The thing I love about Ioka, because you said, you mentioned too late, it sprung into my head, is Ioka was on the big fight on New Year's Eve this past year against Kosei Tanaka, and I think I almost said the prevailing wisdom was that Tanaka, it was kind of the passing the torch to Tanaka, but there were plenty of people that didn't rule out Ioka just because of what a quality fighter he was. But the way he performed in that fight against a fighter on the come up like Tanaka at only 26 years old with devastating punching power, and really he just made him look silly, and that was like, holy shit, I can't believe Ioka is still performing at that level after the amount of fights he's been in, the length of his career. He's just an amazing fighter. So I just can't wait. Rodriguez, I just think very simply, though, that's what it boils down to. Like I said before, I don't think these two guys are on the same level, but I guess we'll find out, right?
I bet Francisco Rodriguez Jr., who fought Roman Gonzalez like it feels like 10 years ago, is probably not even like 28 yet.
Yeah.
He's 29.
He's 29. He's 29. Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. That'd be a great fight, man. So I'm very much looking forward to that in the morning. And then another big fight from Tanzania. We covered Tanzania last week and had a mention of Hassan Wakinyo, 19-2, faces Julius Ndongo.
Another fight I love.
Oh, it's going to be great. 12 rounds for the African Boxing Union light middleweight title.
That is the WBC title this weekend. It is that prestigious.
It's going to be really good. It's not going to be easy to see, unfortunately. It's only going to be on Azam TV in Tanzania. So I have a crystal clear way to watch it, but it won't be readily available to the masses. But the fight should be great. Wakinyo, I did a commentary over a live fight of Wakinyo on my Patreon feed here last week that I was really, really proud of because it's one of my favorite fights. But Wakinyo, and what I mentioned on there, when he went to the UK and he took care of Sam Eggington in a fight that he took on like 1 week's notice back in 2018 and just blew Eggington out at a time when the prevailing wisdom in the UK was Eggington was ready to take a really big career step. It just made Wakinyo a national hero. And the Tanzanians love boxing and they love Hassan Wakinyo. So I'm really looking forward to, there's already been like clips coming on the Tanzanian YouTube channels. I'm already looking forward to, the weigh-in, some of the events around leading up to the fight. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. I can't wait for this fight. I'm really, really looking forward to it. So Saturday, that'll be a great event.
The fight with Eggington is legitimately one of the most, I don't know what had gotten into me that day, but I remember watching exactly where I was. I was in a hotel room in Canada watching that fight on my laptop, and like I was just like on my feet laughing at just the way that fight played out. It was just glorious how Wakinyo was able to finish Eggington. And this crystal clear way, we're going to have to talk about that when we stop recording. And then Ndongo, I don't know. I've always not been very high on Julius Ndongo, so hopefully Wakinyo can get a victory here.
I hope so too. And I said Saturday. It's Friday.
Friday?
Fight's on Friday. Yep. Fight's on Friday.
Wait, is Tanzania the one where we had the dude in the Blue Jays hat?
Yeah, dude in the Blue Jays hat, Flyers t-shirt.
Yeah. All right, good.
Yeah, guys with diapers. And it was also on Monday afterwards where they had in Kaduku's hometown, they had a parade for him, and the Tanzanians came out for that too. They love their boxing, so it's fantastic. So Friday, we'll look forward to it. And I was going to mention Alejandra's fight, but oh, excuse me. I jumped ahead. I apologize. One quick note. Also, on a card that is being advertised on Fight TV from Ghana, which will be a rare occurrence. So I don't see it listed on Tuesday as we record, but Saturday from the legendary Bukum Boxing Arena, we have a very, very interesting main event. So if this shows up on Fight TV, which would be easily accessible to all of us around the world, I would highly recommend it. A super featherweight I'm really, really high on, 19-year-old Alfred Lamptey, who's 8-0 and will be in his first real big platform in a main event against someone named Idi Koyamba, who's 13-3-2 for the WBO Youth super featherweight title. So Lamptey is really being groomed to take big steps here outside of Ghana, and he is a killer. I mean, he's got power in both hands. Very, very aggressive fighter. He's been in against, limited opposition. So we'll see how he performs here in this main event. But a strong recommendation for Saturday's fight in Ghana. And Kayumba's a Tanzanian fighter. And so it should be really good. And the atmosphere there will be fantastic. So hopefully we get a chance to see this. Otherwise, it'll be readily available on Facebook. But I know not everybody likes to watch fights on Facebook, so hopefully it'll show up on Fight. And last but not least, sorry I jumped ahead, but wanted to mention one of our guests from previous, and happy to say our guest that we're going to speak to in just a few minutes, the former Tijuana boxing commissioner, Alejandra Fenix Ayala, 13-5, gives up her commission status to return to the ring at the Mecca of Boxing Saturday. Live on Facebook, Alejandra Ayala makes her professional boxing comeback, and she'll be in a 6-rounder in Tijuana. So really looking forward to Alejandra returning, and I wish her nothing but success. And I'll put that highlight up on Twitter. And she's fighting a fighter who has never been stopped. So this will be a good comeback for Alejandra after being out of the ring almost 2 years.
All right, so let's get over to our interview. And now we welcome on, no stranger to the show, the commissioner. Actually, no. Technically, are you the former commissioner of the Tijuana Commission?
I am. Yes, I am.
Oh, former commissioner Alejandra Ayala. Now she's back. The professional prize fighter known as Alejandra Ayala. You are back as a combatant. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
All right, we're very thankful. You came on short notice. Like 6 minutes ago, we messaged you and you're like, you want to come on the show? Okay, maybe it's longer than 6 minutes. But we said you know
the first ever repeat guest on the Tim Boxeo show, Angelo.
Yeah, the first ever repeat. But we had to get you on because we had you on, talked about Big Punch, which obviously is one aspect of the responsibilities of being the commissioner, but we love it here and talk about it literally every single week. And now you're saying goodbye to that. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
So as you guys, forwarded it, I kind of had a forced leave of absence. I don't want to say retirement from boxing due to COVID, due to some health issues, due to a lot of things, which is why I've been inactive for 2 years. But when they offered me the position for commissioner, I told them, you know what, I'm not officially retired. And they said, that's fine. If you ever decide to, go back to boxing, well, then you just have to, step down from this, but, no hard feelings, this and that. So I was like, okay. So I kind of left my options open. And as of, actually almost simultaneously when I went into the commission, I began training again. And I really didn't know if I was going to come back this year, next year, or as I mentioned, if I come back to be an active boxer, I want something big. I want world champion fights, world title fights. So with that in mind, I decided to do my comeback. It was actually not ironic, but I wanted to come back to a title fight. And everyone's like, you're crazy. You've been inactive for 2 years. And I'm like, I don't care. I'll fight anyone. But the times didn't square off. So I am fighting this Saturday. It is not a title fight. It's a 6-rounder. But I'm still so grateful to be back in the ring. It's incredible.
Are there any nerves that you're having? Like, it's been 2 years.
It's not nerves. It's more like an anticipation, and I'm anxious to just get back in the ring. I've been sparring. I did some great sparring this past month with women and girls that are, super talented that have been, some are pro already. A lot of them have been fighting on a national level. So, just getting back in with them. And at first, obviously, I was super rusty. But, towards the end, especially last week, which I closed my sparring sessions, I felt great. I was moving back, So that gave me more confidence, I think, to come back and to say, I'm really glad that I have come back. I'm in, optimal conditions to come back, and I'm just really excited.
So this is something I thought about for like a really long time, but I've never actually had the opportunity to ask somebody. We hear a lot about ring rust. And sometimes it's like visible, like, oh, somebody came back and they lost, or somebody came back and they didn't look exactly the way we like used to see them. I guess somebody you could say is like Andre Ward. When he came back from his layoff, is like, oh, yeah, that's not exactly the same Andre Ward. But like, actually, from your perspective of somebody who was in the sparring session and you did feel rusty, like, can you tell us like what actually that feels like? Like, what does it mean by feeling rusty?
I can pinpoint it exactly. It means your timing is off. So, like, your body knows what it has to do and your mind knows what it has to do, but just when you're actually gonna apply it, your timing is off. So, even though a certain combination is coming and that that you're able to either do head movement or body movement or independently of whatever you're used to doing, you just like you don't see it coming, like it still hits you square in the face even though you know it's coming. So it's just the timing. It's your distance, like you kind of lose your distance because obviously you're not used to it. And even though you come back and you can train 2-3 months on the bag, it's not the same because it doesn't move as much. It's not as agile as your opponent. So I think more than anything, ring rust refers to that. It's just your timing is off. Even though your mind and your body know what to do, you can't quite get there until you progress and then you train it again and then your body gets used to it again. It's like, okay, now I know what I'm supposed to do.
Do you think Manny Pacquiao was saying this before the fight was supposed to be Spence and then it became Ugas, but he said that he felt like the layoff was going to help him because at his age it had allowed his body to heal, and obviously he didn't win that fight, but I do think he probably meant everything he said about that. Do you think for you having this layoff, there are things that it actually was a benefit?
I can definitely see why a longer layoff is beneficial, especially to your body, especially, Manny Pacquiao, who was fighting top level fighters all the time. He doesn't really have any what are those guys? Stay busy fights. He's champion after champion. So, and he trains like crazy. So I understand what that do for me specifically. It was really frustrating because it was I was like unable to train, because they closed down the gyms, because they closed down the parks, because so many other different reasons. So for me, it was just like, I think it was counterproductive because it was more like a mind game. It was like I want to be doing those things, but I can't. And I think with Manny Pacquiao, I think if you decide that you want to take that time, I think it's beneficial for your body. But if you can't do it, not because you don't want to, I don't know that if it's beneficial. For me, it's been a really difficult road, but just these past, again, since March from now, it's been, an accelerated, everything's just been like coming into play. Everything's just been working out. So, I'm running and everything's okay. I'm sparring and everything's okay. I'm doing mitt work and everything's okay. And I feel like I'm in optimal conditions. Obviously, you don't start, how I ended. I didn't start, but everything is coming into play despite, my 2-year layoff.
I guess I'll ask one more question before I hand it over to Tim. But,
yeah.
When you were not training, or well, not like seriously training for like 2 years, now you're training for a fight. How did it feel to have to, unless you're gifted and you didn't have to do this, but like, what was the transition like to switching up your diet?
I'm vegetarian. So I don't have that much trouble. I don't really eat badly. Like, I like eating healthy. My diet is healthy. The only thing that I obviously did have to cut off, like a lot of carbs. Like, I love pizza. Pizza's my main thing. Margarita pizza, forget about it. A lot of bread. Like, I'm Mexican, so pan de dulce. You know, with my café de leche, you know, café con leche and everything. So that part was a little difficult, but I think just me personally, like, just wanting to get back in the ring, just training, seeing everything working out, and then me losing the pounds. I lost 30 pounds. I actually I gained a lot of weight. Yeah, I gained a lot of weight in this pandemic. So yeah, since January to now, I've lost 30 pounds, and I'm actually coming back at 154 because, as I mentioned to Tim over there, my intention, I want the trilogy with Marie of Decatur. Like, that's the fight I really want. And she's at 154. So I have been fighting at 147. I've decided not to go back. Jessica McCaskill's the undisputed champion. I would love a fight with her, but she's the undisputed champion, so my chances of getting her are limited. You know what I mean? And there are so many more belts at 154. I just think it's more, you know, it's better for me to come back at that weight. So, but yeah, I have been dropping a lot of weight, but it was mostly just cutting out bread, carbs.
So if that's the magic ingredient there to losing weight, I guess I'm stuck.
It's hard. A lot of people are like, oh, that's easy. And I'm like, because I'm Mexican, but I don't even really eat tortilla. You know, I don't. And what I do eat a lot of, though, is bread. So that was hard.
So, Alejandra, you said that 6-round fight this weekend. Do you know who you're fighting?
I am. I do. I'm sorry. I'm fighting Milagro Diaz. She's from Culiacan. She's a local. Despite her negative record, I've seen her fight. Actually, this other girl from California, which I'm drawing a blank right now, Rosa Diaz. She was like a prize fighter too, I believe, and she took on all the rounds. It was a 6-round fight, and she's a tough cookie. She also fought my ex-stablemate Summer Lynn. Also, Summer Lynn's a very hard puncher. She was able to take on all 6 rounds. So I know she's a tough fighter despite her losing streak. And I mean, that's fine. That's fine with me. I really just want to fight. And I think she's going to be a very worthy rival.
What are your Oh, go on, Tim.
No, go ahead, Angelo.
I was just gonna ask, like, what are your? I guess I could say, like, obviously every fighter is like, well, what are the intention? Or here you're like, well, I'm going in to knock this person out and to win at all costs or whatever. But like,
yeah,
kind of like focusing or honing that in a little bit. Like, what do you intend to like develop over the course of the fight? Like, when you walk out of that fight, what do you want to say? Like, all right, I was here before the fight and now I'm here.
Well, first of all, right now I'm considered inactive. So my first, after this fight, I'm going to become an active fighter again. And I doubt this is going to rank me, but whatever ranking I'm at, I want to know what position I'm at and who's the next fighter that I have to fight locally or internationally for me to get ranked and for me to get a title shot. So that's mostly what I want to know. Firstly, to be back as active, and secondly, to see where I'm at and what I need to do to get that title shot.
I've only seen a Marie-Eve Decatur fight one time. Unfortunately, it wasn't the fight that you guys fought. Sorry, but it was against Clarissa Shields. What did you think of her performance against Clarissa Shields?
That's actually exactly how I picture that fight to be. Someone had interviewed me previously before about that fight, and honestly, not to dismerit Marie, but the 2 times I fought her, I was at a complete disadvantage, just as far as my training, where I was in my life, where I was in weight, where it was a complete disadvantage. And even then, I withstood 6 rounds, and then a year later, 10 rounds, I went the distance with her. I know I know the angles, that I know like what she can and her limitations and everything. And I just know that if I have the right preparation, I can put on a performance just like Clarissa Shields. I mean, not that I'm saying that I'm like Clarissa Shields, but I'm saying like I know I can beat her. She is beatable. It's been proven, and Clarissa Shields did a great job of doing, of wearing her down. Marie jumps a lot, comes in and out a lot. She's not a heavy puncher, so you just gotta find her. You just got to stop her.
If you were to beat DeCare, maybe grab another title, maybe another one, would that... And Clarissa Shields decides that maybe she wants to come back and box. Would that be a fight you'd be interested in?
Yeah, I would love a fight against Clarissa Shields. Also, she looks very big, but she's also not a heavy puncher. So, yeah, bring it on. I would love that fight at 154.
Yeah, it's actually kind of... I've never met Clarissa, like, on a personal level, but I've definitely been in the same room as her before. And it is pretty... She definitely looks big on TV, but she's not very big at all.
No, actually, I met her when I went to a national competition here in Mexico when I was still amateur. I was fighting at 69 kilograms. And it was a coincidence because in that same national event, there was an international event where Clarissa Shields came and fought. It was like an America's event, intercontinental event. And I saw her, and I can't believe, the person she is now, the boxer she is now, and where I'm at in life. And it'd be great. Actually, I think I have a picture with her somewhere, so that'd be kind of fun. But yes, as to what you were saying, I agree. On camera, she looks a lot different than in person.
Yeah, I was taken aback. Like, you see fighters and they all, you all look big on the TV. And then you see them in real life, and a lot of times they look smaller. But then there are some guys or girls that look or in person that come off and they're like, wow, he's huge. I've always felt that way about Anthony Durrell. The first time I saw him, I was like, are you kidding me? How is this guy making 168?
Yeah.
And then Clarissa Shields is like tiny.
Yeah, she's very muscular. Her muscles are very defined, but she's slim. Which doesn't translate like on TV, right? But in person, she's slim.
I think she'd definitely appreciate you calling her slim. I think everyone likes to hear that.
Yeah, especially boxers, right?
Right. So this is like random. It just popped up. Were you able to catch the Amanda Serrano fight this past weekend?
I was not. I was actually busy because also it's a weird day. It's a Sunday, right?
Yeah.
But I read all about it. I saw some clips. Honestly, it doesn't surprise me. First of all, Amanda Serrano, my respects. She's an amazing fighter. She's one of my favorite female boxers because, like she fights and she trains and it's like so technical. She's not worried about being categorized as a female boxer. She just wants to be a great boxer, so she trains like that, and her technique is amazing, her strength is amazing, her being able to move up in divisions like that is crazy to me. And obviously I was, I wanted my national buddy to win, but first of all, Yamalit, she was going up in weight class, and then she's going up in weight class, and then she's fighting an amazing future Hall of Famer that is Amanda Serrano. I knew it was going to be a fight that she was going to learn a lot from Yamalit, but I also knew that Amanda was going to win, lose, or draw.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that she's been a pro, Yamalit, for 7 years, I think, and she's only 23 years old.
Yeah.
So she's...
Yeah, here in Mexico's crazy. They debuted at like 16.
How old are you when you debuted?
I was really old. I was 25.
Okay. Well, you also had like a bit of an amateur, what do we call it? A resume or something like that? So
I actually don't. The first time I ever stepped into a boxing ring, I was 23 years old, and I had 14 amateur fights.
oh wow. I thought you had because you'd mentioned seeing Clarissa Shields at an amateur event, but maybe you were pro already by then.
No, I was amateur. The thing was that I think I had the opportunity because in Mexico there's not a lot of competition in my weight division. So it was just like I was going tournament, Golden Glove, Mexican Golden Gloves. There was a Mauricio Suleiman tournament. There is something called Puños Rosas, and I got ranked quicker. My amateur career went by super fast, and then I competed to compete on a national level at 69, and I beat the 3 girls that are in my weight class. So then I went to the nationals, and then I was able to get bronze. But yeah, I did all that in 14 fights.
Well, clearly, you weren't too bad at boxing. If you were to 14 fights and you already accomplished all of that, I would definitely like to see you fight and see you. Given that you've been on the show twice already, we have to consider you absolute favorite of the show. So I'd love to see you fight Dakar and beat her. And I think you're right.
Yes.
I'm no expert on women's boxing. I don't want to or mislead anybody, but I watched the Clarissa Shields fight, and I do think Dakar would be beatable if you come in with the right style, or I guess approach.
Yeah, I do. And from the first to the second fight that I fought Dakar, I was able to pinpoint the things that I needed to do. But I reiterate, I've been at a really bad disadvantage both times that I fought her, unfortunately. But I know if I'm in optimal conditions, I already know the way to go about beating her. Mm-hmm. So I would love to just make it happen.
So this fight coming up on Saturday is at Big Punch.
It is.
Do you know who the promoter is going to be?
Yeah, his name. The promoter's name is Terrazas Boxing Promotions. He's Ramon Terraza used to do a lot of boxing, and then with the pandemic, he hasn't done. And then he did one event maybe 2 months ago. It was his first event coming back, and so this will be his second event coming back. But he's a great guy, and he's got a lot of talented fighters as well. Omar Huerta and a few others, and I'd suggest you tune in.
And then make sure you tell Tim here that he better post the clips afterwards on Twitter and all of his social media things.
Okay.
Are you
it's
still...
already done.
Are you still managing fighters?
Sometimes? I am. And I think sometimes it can be misconstrued, or it could be misinterpreted. I don't know how to say that. How's a fighter going to be managing? But honestly, it happens a lot. Once you're pro, I'm not saying I'm world champion, but once I've been in this for so long, the boxers that I am managing, they're just starting, and especially I like managing female boxers. I have one. Her name's Jennifer Martinez, because it's been really difficult for me. It's been a really difficult journey for me, and I've gotten to the point now that I can give back, that I can guide them, that I can say, you know what, don't go this way, do this, wait a little bit. And I don't know, I feel really happy in my role as manager. And that's not something that I want to give up. Even though, I am fighting, I'm back to fighting, they understand. And like I said, even though I'm your manager or whatever, we're a team, so that's the way I like to work with them, with my boxers, with their trainers, with everything. We're a team, so we decide things together, and it's working out for us. And honestly, they're cheering me on too, now that I'm doing my comeback fight, so that's awesome.
Yeah, well, Mikey Garcia's managed fighters for several years now, and he's an active fighter, so there's no reason why anyone...
Well.
Who else?
Yeah.
You say
Leo Santa Cruz.
Oh yeah, that's right. Leo Leo has his own little stable of fighters as well.
Right.
Alejandra, after Saturday, do you have a number of fights in mind before you'd like to fight Dakar, or is it just more of when the opportunity arises if that fight can be made?
Yeah, I would love to fight her, as soon as possible. If it's before the year ends, I would love that fight. I'm waiting for opportunity. Like I mentioned, there are a couple champions in the 154 division. I'm raising my hand up to whoever has a title. That's something I want. As far as how many fights, I think that if for example, it's October and nothing's happened, then I'm going to do another fight. I want to stay active as well. I don't want to go back to to not fighting at 6 months waiting for an opportunity. So that's my idea. If I want to fight, 2, maybe 3 times before the year ends, what better if it's that title shot? But if it's not, I want to stay active.
Well, if the goal fighting 2 to 3 times before the year ends, you're definitely in the right town to do that. That's for sure, right?
Oh yeah, sure. Fight every 2 weeks.
You fight twice in the same day on two different promoters' cards in the same venue. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Hey, Alejandra, we can't thank you enough. Obviously, we're going to be rooting for you. I'll be watching the fight live and make sure we get the information out on Twitter right when the fight ends. Is there anything you want to add before we let you go?
Just that I'm really excited. I'm really grateful. Honestly, I have so many people who support me that it's incredible because, I think sometimes it's not true that boxing is the loneliest sport. That's absolutely not true. I have so much support, and I need all the support from my corner, from sponsors, from my family, from my friends. Honestly, that gives me more energy, and I'm so happy to be doing this comeback. I feel like this is the correct decision, and you guys called it. That's why I was like, when you said, can you come back on my show? I have to. You called it. Before anybody said anything, you said, okay, so when you're coming back? And I was like, whoa, I didn't make it public, but but you guys had called it. So I'm also very grateful to you guys. Thank you for having me on again, the first repeat. And thank you for supporting me and being there in tune with everything I'm doing.
Absolutely. We can't.
Tim, why are you copying me?
We wish you the very best of luck on Saturday. We'll be watching, and we'll look forward to a trilogy fight with Dakar. We'll have this one in Tijuana, though. Enough going to Mexico or going to Montreal. Yeah.
I go to Montreal. It doesn't matter. If I have to knock her out, then I have to knock her out. Actually, after my fight, if everything goes according to plan, I'm going to be posting up a picture, an interesting picture. So stay tuned.
Oh, teaser. We call that a teaser, yeah. Angelo. That's good stuff.
Right.
We look forward to next week breaking down, analyzing the latest picture from Alejandra Ayala. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
That was our interview with Alejandra Ayala. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Tim, what should listeners do now that they've finished listening to the podcast?
Please, if you like the show, it would really help us out if you leave us a rating, and leave us a rating of 5 if you could. If you don't want to leave us a rating of 5, just message me and tell me what you think we can improve on. I'd love to incorporate your ideas into the show. And leave a comment or a recap on what you like about the show on Apple. It would go a long way for us, please. I would really appreciate it. And take a look at all the links I have in my bio on Twitter. And I'm especially proud if you have a minute to just take a look at it and see if it's something that interests you. The club boxing community that we're building as a small group on Patreon. So take a look at that. There's a lot of cool things that I have incorporated into Patreon. So that's a great community. I'd love to have you be a part of it. And
at a minimum, join the Discord server, which is fastly growing. And I think you've got a really cool community of people there. You've got some big names in there that every so often just pop up and throw out their opinion on things. But I think it's a really cool place that you're building. You have the shop. You have also the calendar, which is, if you watch club boxing, invaluable in terms of being able to know what to watch, when to watch it. Tim makes it very easy for you with the calendar. So all you got to do is hit the subscribe button on that. And of course, subscribe to the podcast. Leave a rating review if you and if you enjoy the podcast too, you still can hit us up and give us your thoughts, feedback, or anything you particularly really enjoy. Maybe we should do more of, less of, anything like that. We are always here to listen. All right. So that is it for this week. We will be back next week with hopefully another babyface promo from Saul Farah. And if not, oh well, maybe Chris Lovejoy will be back in the news. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening.